Have you ever stopped to think that no matter how difficult life may seem, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel? It can be hard to believe, especially when problems pile up and you seem to be lacking strength. But what if I told you that better days are closer than you think? It may sound like a cliche, but true confidence in a new beginning only happens when we place our faith in something greater, in something we cannot control. If you have tried everything and found yourself stagnant, it is time to stop and reflect. Could it be that your focus is only on the difficulties and not on the hope of a new beginning? God promises us that even in the most complicated situations, He is working in our favor, and trusting in this is a first step to living differently. The question that remains is, are you ready to truly believe that the best is yet to come? I know this can be a challenge, especially for those who have already gone through so much suffering. But if you are willing to open your heart to faith and trust, what I am going to tell you next can change your life. Let's discover together how to cultivate the confidence needed to take the next steps with renewed hope. Gratitude is a powerful starting point, did you know? When someone wakes up and takes the time to thank God for another day, something begins to change within them. It may seem simple, but this sincere act can open the heart to a new chance, a new beginning, under the divine will. Imagine someone who previously only saw difficulties. When they give thanks, they begin to notice details that previously went unnoticed. A child's smile, the warmth of a hug, or even the sunlight coming through the window. God renews His invitation every morning to live more attentively, more presently, and more connected to Him. Renewal also occurs in areas where there is pain, those where the struggles seem to have no end. There are those who are dealing with difficulties at work, in relationships, or even in their health. And yet, God's grace is ready to fill these gaps. Here, a sincere prayer can have the power to open paths. If you've never done this before, a good place to start would be to set aside a few minutes in the morning and talk to God about your difficulties, using whatever words come to you without fear. It's an act of trust that, little by little, can bring a peace that's hard to explain but impossible to deny. It's in this intimate dialogue that God strengthens those who believe and begins to renew what seemed lost. And how does this apply to your daily life? Well, each morning is a new opportunity to adjust your focus. Imagine that each small gesture, whether it's a simple thank you or a closer look at the blessings of your daily life, is like a brick in the construction of a solid faith. Those who want to see real change can commit to starting each day with this purpose. Today I will choose to see the blessings and trust that God is giving me a new beginning. Practicing gratitude is a decision, and like any true change, it starts slowly but has an impact that spreads to all areas of your life. Trusting that better days will come is an essential pillar for those who face moments of darkness. When someone decides to keep their faith even in the midst of difficulties, it is as if they are anchoring their heart in something that is beyond the circumstances. Sometimes it seems impossible to believe in a better tomorrow, especially when the present is difficult. But precisely in these moments, God invites us to keep our eyes fixed on Him. A clear example is when, even when faced with a financial problem or a family crisis, a person chooses not to give in to despair, but to hand over their worries to God. This choice brings a serenity that only faith can provide. Hope for better days is a daily exercise, and like a muscle, it needs to be strengthened. Each act of trust in God is like training that solidifies the conviction that He is in control, even when everything around us seems unstable. For those who are seeking to strengthen this faith, a powerful exercise is to write down small memories of overcoming. The person can write down things that seem to have no solution, but that, over time, were transformed. So, when she revisits these memories, she will remember that God has not failed her in the past, and He will not fail her now. It is like keeping small seeds of hope that bloom in the most difficult days. And after all, who has never needed to hear everything will be okay to calm their heart? God gives us this certainty, but we need to pay attention to the signs. It may be through a passage from the Bible or even through a friendly word, but He speaks constantly. In Proverbs 3 verse 5, He asks us to trust with all our heart and not depend only on our understanding. It is an invitation to believe without reservations, knowing that He has already prepared a way, even if we cannot yet see it. For those who experience this, trusting in better days is not a passing thought, but a lifestyle. Self-knowledge is the first step towards a true new beginning, but it requires courage to face head-on what needs to be changed. Often, people say they want a new phase, but they insist on the same habits and attitudes that keep them tied to the past. It's like trying to clean a window without actually scrubbing the stains. For a new beginning to be real, we need to leave behind what is blocking us, be it an old hurt, harmful behavior, or even limiting thoughts. Faith, in this case, not only motivates us to move forward, but also helps us identify these patterns. It's like a light that reveals areas that need to be transformed. Making the decision to change is an act of wisdom and requires a daily commitment. If a person wants to abandon old habits, they need to draw up a practical plan, such as listing attitudes they want to change and the actions that will facilitate this transformation. For example, someone who wants to get closer to God can decide to set aside a moment of prayer every morning. Little by little, these small decisions gain strength and, over time, transform into new behaviors. It is interesting to remember that the Bible gives us many examples of people who, through faith, abandon their old ways to live a greater purpose. But every change brings its challenges, and it is at this moment that the person needs to trust that God is guiding their transformation process. It is not easy, and there will be days when everything will seem more difficult. After all, changing means leaving your comfort zone. However, each small victory is proof that it is possible to build a new life, as long as this journey is based on faith and trust that God works in every detail. In this way, self-knowledge becomes a safe guide, and the steps taken towards a new beginning become firm and constant. Self-care is often neglected, but it is also part of a life of faith and balance. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. It is a need that God recognizes and values. Even Jesus, in His ministry, set aside moments of solitude to connect with the Father, renew His strength, and seek wisdom. Each of us also needs this break to recharge our spirit and take care of our mental health. A simple moment of prayer at the beginning of the day, for example, can renew energy and help align our intentions. It is a small act of faith that says to God and to yourself, I am here, ready to be guided. There are several practical forms of self-care that strengthen the journey of faith and promote balance. Reading a passage from the Bible, taking a moment to reflect, or even setting aside time to rest are acts of renewal. Maintaining a healthy routine with a balanced diet and physical activity is also a form of self-care that reflects the appreciation of the body, the temple that God gave us. This comprehensive care, from the physical to the spiritual, strengthens the person to face challenges and share hope with those around them. Taking care of oneself does not distance one from faith. On the contrary, it brings one closer to God by recognizing one's own value. When someone invests in self-care, they are better prepared to care for others and fully live out God's purpose. To practice this care, it is a good idea to create a daily routine that includes prayer, moments of reflection, and something that brings pleasure, such as a hobby or inspiring reading. After all, it is impossible to serve with quality if one's own needs are neglected. By taking care of oneself, one not only honors God, but also enriches one's ability to dedicate oneself to others. With this vision, self-care becomes an essential part of a life of faith and spiritual growth. Time management is one of the keys to a healthier life focused on God's purposes. Setting clear boundaries is essential to avoid getting lost in commitments that exhaust and overwhelm. Even Jesus knew when it was time to withdraw and seek rest and peace, showing that we do not need to be available to everything and everyone at all times. Learning to say no to certain demands and recognizing our own limits is an important step towards living a life that honors God and respects our own values and priorities. This is not weakness. It is wisdom in action. Setting priorities also helps us focus on what truly brings us peace and hope. Sometimes people feel like they need to do everything, that they need to please everyone, but in the end, they only end up exhausted and unmotivated. A good practice is to list the most important tasks of the day and seek guidance in prayer, asking for discernment to recognize what deserves more attention. By placing God at the center of our choices, it becomes easier to decide what should be done and what can wait. Life is not a race against time, and well-invested moments always produce fruits of wisdom and peace. When there is a balance between work, faith, and rest, life becomes lighter and more satisfying. Time management becomes a tool to maintain focus on spiritual goals, without giving up time with family or to recharge one's own strength. A practical example is to set aside one day a week for rest and leisure, or to set times for specific activities. By valuing time, one also values the blessings and opportunities that God places in one's path, without giving in to overloads or wear and tear that only lead to exhaustion. Prayer has immense power, especially when we intercede for those we love. In the rush of everyday life, we don't always remember to take a moment to pray for family, friends, and even strangers who need support. When you pray for someone, you not only strengthen your faith, but you also bring comfort and hope into that person's life. Sometimes, a simple request for a blessing for a loved one can be the turning point they so desperately need. By interceding, we put into practice the love and compassion that God teaches us, recognizing that we are all part of the same purpose of light and faith. The Bible is full of examples of the importance of intercession. Job, even in the midst of his difficulties, prayed for his friends, and God restored his life. This example shows us that when we look beyond our own pain, we also attract God's healing and care. By praying for others, we not only ask for their good, but we also learn to strengthen our own trust in divine power. One invitation is to set aside a moment, either when you wake up or before you go to sleep, to pray to God for those who are facing difficulties in their studies, at work, or in any aspect of their lives. By making intercession a habit, you experience God's love in a deep and real way. This practice is a reminder that, despite our own challenges, we can always be instruments of faith and hope for someone in need. In addition, this is a great time to ask for wisdom to know how to help in a practical way those who need support, whether by offering a friendly word or simply listening. Intercession is an act that strengthens unity among people, showing that God's love transcends barriers and bears fruit in every prayer, in every act of faith. So, now that you've learned about each of these ways to strengthen your spiritual and personal life, what do you think about taking the first step? The changes you so desire won't happen if they remain just ideas. How about starting by taking an act of faith today? Reflect. What habits and thoughts can you abandon, and what do you need to bring into your life so that this new era can really begin? Make a commitment, even if it's something simple, and take a small step towards what you want to experience. How could you demonstrate more self-care? Who are the people around you who could benefit from your prayer? This is the time to decide what your next move will be, and not turn back. Turning theory into practice is the secret to building a strong and resilient faith that can withstand any adversity. How about making this commitment and leaving your intentions for the future in the comments? This act of sharing is already a start. Let's grow together, building a lighter and more balanced journey. If this message touched you and you want to continue evolving, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Each new learning experience can be the missing piece to achieving everything you seek. Come be a part of this community and delve deeper into the knowledge that truly transforms. After all, we are all on a journey, and walking together can make all the difference. Let's go.